Go live. Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, March 14th. In Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. We are taking up S-175 relating to requiring retail businesses to accept cash. I'd like to, I hear there's some scheduling issues. Does anyone here have a scheduling issue besides Dylan that I should know about? Okay. So what I'd like to do then, I think Dylan's is fairly short. So we'll start with Dylan's wiki from Leonine and then go to Rick, who has a list of possible exemptions for us to consider. I think as folks remember, just to frame this up, it's a really short bill. And then the question is what exemptions do we include? And Rick has pulled some from other states that have passed this legislation.
Oh, great.
And Dylan has an additional one that I didn't see on the list that I think is newer to states that have more recently passed this or jurisdictions. So Dylan, you're welcome to get in the witness chair and we'll get started. And then we'll go in the order that I have up.
Thank you very much, Chair. For the record, Dylan Zwicky with Leonine Public Affairs, here this morning on behalf of Visa, with what I hope will be viewed as a friendly amendment. It is posted to the committee page and also hard copies in case the members would like to.
Yeah, retreat and kill, so we'll take it.
The purpose of this amendment is to enable small retailers that like restaurants, food trucks, or other food purveyors to continue to operate without cash in their stores, but also to accommodate customers who desire to pay with cash or only cash available to them. The amendment is modeled off of language used in New York City and the District of Columbia, and provides an exemption for retailers who install a device in their stores that can convert cash into a prepaid or store value card. Think of these devices as reverse ATMs, which and then Delaware and Oregon are two of the more recent states that have passed cash prohibitions with the inclusion of this similar language. I think it's important to note that there are no fees or charges to the customer who wants to take advantage of these. They simply just their cash in, make that prepaid Visa or MasterCard back out. That can be used at the location or any other location that the customer chooses to visit. And then in addition, the underlying funds on that card don't expire. A consumer needing the using the card to use a portion of whatever cash they put in at that premises and then continue to use it elsewhere. So in short, the amendment provides an option for retailers that would like to exercise this option and remain cashless. We understand that for some business owners, it's a security question, a company question. They want to continue to be able to do this. Obviously, important if this legislation moves forward, that those businesses are able to continue to do so if they offer this option. So I'm happy to walk through the amendment. I think it's fairly straightforward.
Does anyone have questions about the concept of your question?
So how does Visa make any money on that?
So the way Visa traditionally makes money is they're not the credit card, they are the payment processor, and so they earn a percentage on similar to the way that they would with any other Visa transaction on a network for someone who's just going with your normal Visa card versus a prepaid card. So they take a portion of that just as they would on any other.
Right, but so does that mean the retailer is gonna be paying 3% for those transactions?
Yes,
The retailer does that anyway whenever someone uses a card.
correct.
No, but I mean, right, and these are places that only seem to take cards and don't take cash, right? That's what we're compensating for, the cashless.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, how many places like this exist? How many retailers are using this now in Vermont?
I'm not aware of how many of these devices are in place in Vermont. I think the important thing is if someone doesn't want to accept cash, they would need to go out and make sure that they have
I
it.
was just curious how.
What I think, I mean, I think we'll hear from others who want paid for a card, which the only thing I can say I appreciate about this is it's not charging someone to have a plastic card for printing at UVM or having your pay go on that card and be used at a particular campus or facility like a ski area. I'm okay with those existing as a means of transaction, but not if it costs the person additional money. So I think this is a valuable amendment from that perspective.
These are fairly common if you go to large sporting events or arenas where they don't want to have very large volumes of cash on hand. And only accept cards, they
I know, just
so.
curious how prevalent it was in Vermont.
I think less prevalent in Vermont probably than other jurisdictions, but one have the option to.
Yeah, no, it's a good, I think it's a,
Senator Rock.
Just want to understand better, who pays for the machine that's being used?
So
Now Visa, is it the merchant?
I think it does depend on the arrangement, in these cases, it would be the merchant,
I'm sorry,
it would be the merchant.
be the merchant. And do we have any sense for what these things cost? And I'm thinking of the impact and the practicality of it with particularly small businesses in rural areas, which is one of the things that this bill was designed to address. Is this practical?
I'm happy to follow up with more information about.
I think it'd just be useful to understand the cost dynamics.
Okay, Senator Hill.
Yeah, thank you. I do think it's essential that the customer not have to pay a fee and the expiration, no expiration is really important. So it's good that those are conditions. I suspect that these situations are handled individually and there's probably a contract and you might even be able to do it for events and you would pay per machine for a certain amount of time. And it would be the vendor or the merchant who would pay. So I can't see a big uptake in these, except for maybe events.
yeah,
Yeah, it would be for those retailers that, for one reason or another, whatever it is, want to continue to only accept non-cash payments.
Right. I guess the only concern I would have is how can we make sure that those conditions are actually kept?
Well, so the amendment does say without charging a fee or a minimum
Right.
deposit.
No, the language is good and it's a good model, but I'm just concerned about how we would yeah. But folks might not know if they're getting charged,
Right.
or they might not know if it expires.
So that could be either a question for DFR or election council if we want to talk about
Yeah.
enforcement, but if you come across, Dylan, I'm sure it'll come up, if you come across any like postings from New York or DC that tell people their rights around this kind of transaction, that would be great. The only other question I have, which I think Visa would be in the best position to answer, is pretty soon I feel like it won't be cards. It'll be like a phone
Contactless payment.
contactless payment. Thank you. So do we really want to say card? That also would be both chances.
And so I think at this point, these machines only
Only
issue
spit out cards.
cards.
Okay.
don't
Because I think
know.
some subways now, you put your phone.
put your phone or your credit card right on the thing.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
getting ahead of myself because we don't live. in
But what we're dealing with
Yeah,
is technology has changed.
yeah,
Some people don't like the new change, they don't understand it.
right,
And some people just on principle think, I'm going to do cash and I
Right.
want to pay cash.
yeah,
For the people on the other side,
Yeah.
frequently it's protection of employees from threat or protection
Mhm.
from the employer from having cash.
right,
Here in retail settings, your biggest shoplifters are
yeah,
your workers. I worked retail and had to have everything in a see-through plastic case. And this was 12 before 9/11. And you had to be checked. So finding that ability to allow some accommodation
Yeah.
for people.
yeah,
I think some of the people who were calling me, and I got the same calls as Senator Perchlik, who sponsored this,
okay,
are not gonna be happy with being told that they can put cash into a machine to get a card out. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of principle, and I don't know that I
right.
can accommodate that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that and I'm just, Visa of all of our witnesses operates in Europe where there's just not cards anymore. It's a lot of phone transactions. A lot of places aren't even taking plastic cards. So it just feels like that's coming soon. And I don't know if we should change the language or just contemplate that.
I think we're flexible enough to change it when we need to.
I do have one other question.
Yeah.
Is there any identifying information? So does the machine know, or does the system know who is putting in the cash, or do they have to? Okay, good. That's really
That would
important.
make, that
So
would,
we might want to, because part of the issue with cash is people want privacy.
Right.
So we might want to just put in some sort of language about it
That-
being anonymous.
no,
That might help your
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, yeah, we have heard a lot of concerns about data privacy, including tax.
I mean, I actually see these machines being really helpful to folks who get
Mhm.
paid in cash.
Yes,
Because then they don't have to carry the cash around.
and they don't have to be bankable to.
Yes.
I know there are a lot of advantages.
Right, I'm just
Yeah,
kind of used to it not having a fee, and obviously someone has to pay the fee and it could be the merchant. And
Mhm.
if folks start coming in and treating it like a bank, then the merchant would get overwhelmed, but that's just how, we'll see what happens if this does come to pass.
Yeah, certainly, I think it would depend on how that, to your point, how the contract is structured. Is it based on how many individuals are utilizing it? Is it just a monthly fee or, and I think that may depend on who the vendor is for the particular machine. For the merchant that does not want to accept cash, though this doesn't really change their, it does would require, in order for them to accept cash, they're either losing that business today, or to walk in and it's non-pack business, they walk out the door. This would provide another option for them to still continue to purchase it there.
it would protect. Well, the cash is going into the machine would be vulnerable to being stolen. But generally merchants do that as they're doing a cost benefit, the cost of having the machine compared to the cost of being robbed.
Right, so you probably have someone to pick it up.
just thinking about your phone, I mean, your phone could probably be used in this establishment to pay for things. Anyway, right, I mean, if it's a cashless retail operation.
Yeah.
My guess is your phone could be used.
Right.
It's been-
No, to me, it was just using the language,
Right,
it can be put into a prepaid card that already feels like it's gonna be out of date quite soon, but it's fine.
I'm happy with it.
Venmo is not a card.
Right.
Oh, you don't want Venmo?
I'm halfway through it. It's giving people access to my bank account. It gives me
I
hesitation.
know, me too, you and me, we're on the same side.
And I think that's what you're gonna find. The more people you give your bank account number and the ability to directly take money out, the more you're at risk of having somebody else get that. And
It's just different feelings of risk, right? Like if I have cash on me, I feel like it's burning a hole in my pocket. I don't want it.
So
I'm scared of that risk.
Oh, look at her.
And you said- Yeah, exactly.
So they're
Only buying your stores when you feel like it's money's getting over.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Come shop with me.
Madam Chair, just to play out your question about is Europe cards less prevalent, and I think in terms of what the language on the page is, and also sort of the question of data privacy, I think in order to get to something other than a prepaid card, you would need to either transfer it to your phone, which would involve some level of understanding who that person is that's doing the transaction, or provide some other, I mean,
Yeah,
they're not gonna issue a phone or an Apple Watch.
right.
So-
It is, it's shaped like a card even on your phone, which is kind of funny, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're.
I do think, and this is a question I can also get you answer, I think you could potentially take one of those prepaid cards and add it to your
Yeah.
Apple Wallet, for example.
Yeah.
Which would then enable you to not have it cards that
So-
still utilize the content.
Yeah, see if you can find us an example. My guess would be is laundromat might be a worthy example in New York City of how this is working. Just something to tell us where someone would go and get a prepaid card that costs nothing to them. That would be helpful.
Yeah, certainly, any of the larger sports arenas are currently using these.
Okay,
So are ski areas, I mean, we have, here, ski areas use these.
That would be a good question for,
yeah, right. In New York City, I don't know any ski areas.
No, but, I get the laundromat, off the question,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not, I think this is a good solution to some of the concerns, so.
So you said New York, DC, in a state?
New York, DC, Delaware, and Oregon. Those are kind of four of the more recent jurisdictions that have enacted prohibitions on cash.
You know if Visa is going to other states, or there are other states that are considering adding kind of language to their existing.
I know that the advocacy around these types of devices is relatively new. Massachusetts is another jurisdiction that does have a prohibition on
Right.
non-cash. And does not include this language. That law was passed, I think, back in the eighties, and so this is a relatively new technology, and so as these proposals in other jurisdictions have started to pop up, so as the advocacy around it, and so I think what you're starting to see is more and more states and cities that move forward with the type of legislation you're contemplating are including this type of provision. But Pledge Council certainly would be able to speak to that problem.
So Dylan, this is, sorry, I totally, it's New York, DC, and what was the third one? Jurisdiction.
Oregon and Delaware are the two states post 2020 that I'm aware of. That include this language.
Okay, thank you.
I guess one more.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. So have you seen one of these machines?
I've done a little bit of research online. I don't know.
Look, I'm just trying to
I'm looking
imagine.
for them.
Okay.
They look a lot like an ATM.
Do they take single dollars?
There are some that usually start at a minimum of $5.
Okay.
And the amendment does say with a minimum of $5, that's, you can't, certainly cannot put points into these.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's fully solving for the individual that only has one single dollar and wants to pay cash.
Or a bunch of single dollars, but okay.
Well, you could put 5 single dollars.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just the card itself.
Oh, increments of- right. Okay, okay,
So.
thanks, that's all.
Thanks, Dylan, for let you go. And get Rick in our witness chair.
It was so funny and counterintuitive to actually get a car.
Well,
I once was behind a woman at Starbucks who had a $20 bill, and she's like, "Can you put this on my Starbucks card?" And they were like, "Well, the machine's not working." She's like, "Well, what do I do?"
Just pay, dear.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, can you use this $20 to pay?" But she was like paralyzed. So no, people really do feel like they hold their cards. Okay, Rick,
Good morning.
good morning. So this
Again,
is now posted on our website.
yeah, Rick Sagal, Office of Legislative Counsel.
This is we have.
Well, fresh in your mind, I do want to show you the state that I had researched. I didn't put this in the bill that we're about to walk through, but this is North Carolina. And I believe this is in their committee. This is 2023. I don't believe it passed, but the language is interesting. Speaking of what Dylan was speaking to. See here, the subsection B, a person provides subsection 2, a person provides to customers a device at the physical location that converts cash into a prepaid card, so long as all the following requirements are met. There's no fee.
Mhm.
The device is not required in terms of deposit more than $1. Any funds don't expire. The device allows the customer to redeem any unused balance of cash. The device is not collecting any personal identifying information, and there's no fee. So that's fairly well done. We can
Yeah.
certainly be inspired by that language and
Yeah.
use that as appropriate.
Right, and it didn't have.
Well, I don't
We
think
don't
it
know
did.
that. We don't know that.
Yeah, but the language is certainly.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I like the dollar better than the $5, but that might get.
Could have
some
been, yes,
negative
could have been a reason
feedback,
why.
But not that it didn't pass, but maybe they would have changed that by the end.
Right. Yeah.
But if they did pass this exact language, I would be curious about that. Senator Harris.
thank you. So, item D.
Yes.
We didn't talk about that. Allows the customer to redeem any unused balance for cash at any time. And
Oh,
I
I do
assume
like that,
they
right.
mean in that machine or a similar machine. Because nobody else would, I mean, unless somebody wanted to take it.
Yeah, I mean, it would have, there's plenty of caveats on that, like they can't just go anywhere and take cash.
Probably, but I think that is a good.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Yeah, you're right. There's just a scenario in which you can get your cash
If
back.
you're walking around with a gift card now that has a $2 balance
Yeah.
on it. And you end up with a pocket full of look like
Right.
charge cards, but how do I know there's $2 on this one
Yeah.
and $5 on
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah.
Right, so then you could go get your
Right.
That money ends up going into, I believe, the treasurer's unclaimed.
And I know who does this, which is Costco. Like you could get a cash card at Costco and go up to the counter anytime and get your cash instead.
All right.
And I'll say, sorry, Madam Chair, I haven't had time to research. Vermont does have some pretty strict laws on cash cards. So I.
Right, that's right.
I- I-
Yeah.
At my time. I
No, I
think
was
that,
there when you passed.
So I wanna make
Yeah.
sure that we're not,
That's a great
going
point.
against that part of the
Yeah.
statute.
Well, hopefully we can strengthen that statute, because I remember when we first looked at getting your payment on a card. Gary has probably something to say about this. It was a big question of, what fees can you charge, like if you're actually paying someone with a pay card. So I'd like to look at all the laws we have around this and make them as friendly to the consumer as possible.
May I switch to the bill, that I,
Senator Cummings.
No, we've got several Vermont businesses that do require card payments. And I'd like to hear from them, because we're talking about New York City.
Yeah, we're hearing
Okay.
him right after me. I just wanted him to talk about the exemptions we might put in so that they have something to refer to, just like Dylan mentioned something, now we're having a back and forth. People might see exemptions that meet their needs in the new draft that we're looking at.
Okay, it's in rural areas, you know, and you're subject.
That's why we have Aaron here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're subject to, theft,
Yeah,
you know, and potential violence. But is it cost effective for those small operations who may have several to have a machine?
right,
I don't know if you can pick them up and move them from location to location,
right,
or if there's one available.
right.
This is Vermont. I mean, who's
Yeah,
responsible for the
I-
machine?
we'll have Aaron talk to this concern. I don't think what Rick's found in other states speaks to that, and we're talking about a lot of other states that have passed this that have rural areas or areas with high crime and petty theft. So I just don't know what it would look like to solve that problem against the folks, as you said, who really want to have their cash paid with cash.
Yeah, and I mean, we're looking at the law. It would be interesting to see how the laws have worked, especially, well, they didn't pass it in North Carolina, which is a rural.
But we don't know that. He's gonna do further research.
yes,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I
That's what you
mean,
wanna really-
how is that working?
sure, yeah, and that's Aaron is taking note, so. Rick, you have the floor.
All right, so on the screen,
Theoretically.
and even perhaps
See,
on your
Aaron is ready for you.
We're doing my best. Yes.
So this is version 1.1 of S-175. Last time we went through the very basic, no exceptions, right? Except, was there any exceptions? $1,000. That was the one exception. So I kept, well, let me start with here. A seller or lessor who offers goods or services of retail to consumers shall not refuse to accept cash as a method of payment unless the transaction exceeds $1,000. So we keep that in there. And the rest is new. Is conducted by telephone, by mail, or over the internet. Just in case
Yeah.
retail is not clear. I think retail for most people, it's understandable that this is in person, but in case it's not. 3 is for parking at a parking lot or a parking garage. I think some states have done that because those are unmanned and they don't want to have a cash machine there. Occurs at a wholesale club that sells goods or services to consumers through a membership model. That would be the Costco or Sam's Club. I don't necessarily know the reasons why those are excluded, but that could be something that maybe someone else has information about.
I think if you couple that with the Visa requested language, you get at what I know at least Costco does, which is they give you cash cards for some of your transactions and you can return those for cash. Like,
I know they take cash in the register. Costco takes cash, it doesn't take credit cards, well, maybe it has one credit card it's gotta deal with, but they deal with cash.
They do
I've had-
Visa, they do
Yeah.
Visa or
Yeah.
they do cash.
Except at
right.
the gas station, that's where I've had to go get a
right,
cash card.
Yeah.
So I could
Yeah.
pump gas, it was down south.
so maybe that's an outdated one, like,
Could be.
ask Costco.
Well, I don't know
have
what
a sample.
Sam's Club does, they make,
Do we have a Sam's Club?
I don't know, no, I don't think so.
No.
But
Do you-
there is one in, Lebanon.
Aaron, would you have any thoughts on this when we get to you, the wholesale piece, or is that not your? They are grocers.
They're not a member,
Okay,
but I do believe they're a member of the Lake Champlain Chamber. Maybe they can.
okay. So do people wanna look at striking this one potentially or? Oh,
I think there should be a reason to have it.
okay,
Yeah.
so we have a question about this one.
Yeah, let's finish.
Number 5 is one in which a security deposit is placed on a credit card to cover unforeseen damages or expenses.
Hotels.
Hotels, rental cars. 6 is one in which a bank or credit union is the seller or lessor.
So bank doesn't.
Again,
We're
I'm
gonna get
not
to
a
that,
banker,
I
I'm not a
think.
banker.
Yeah,
Where's Christelia?
Really exception.
7 occurs outside the physical location of the business, so a locksmith that comes and locks your
So
car.
I just wanna know, when we have questions about the bank or credit union one, do you remember which state that came from or all of them?
It came from not more than one.
It came from more than one?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, of course, you have Colorado, which is just basically you shall accept cash, right? With very few
Mhm.
exceptions.
Yeah.
But the newer states that have passed these bills tend to have more exceptions,
Mhm.
compared to Colorado.
Mhm.
7 occurs outside the physical location. I mentioned like a locksmith, a towing company who
Mhm.
comes out from their place of business to.
They were
Perform,
not out without a credit card.
That's right, yeah.
Number 8 is one in which the seller or lessor is unable to accept cash either because of a sales system failure that temporarily prevents the processing of cash payments, or because the seller or lessor temporarily lacks sufficient cash on hand to make change.
Okay, what's interesting is I feel like when there's a system failure, you can't use a credit card versus probably using cash.
That's like.
When there's a system
Yeah.
failure, they don't know how to make change for cash.
That is frightening.
It is.
Where did that one come
It's like I didn't cite all
from?
the
Okay,
different
okay.
states. I included ones that I thought would be
Yeah.
interesting to
Yeah.
include. And that was the last one. Section B is the same, the Deceptive Trading Practices Act.
Okay, so we're not sold on this one with lots of caveats that seem very easy to say, I just don't have change temporarily for a year, I don't know. So I'd like to know where that one comes from and then
Okay.
how widespread the use of that one is.
And the reasoning behind it too.
Yeah.
And if it's just justified. Well, the bank one concerns me.
You said Connecticut had a strong
Bank.
cashless law, right?
That's
Right?
so weird.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
Because I'm seeing my friend next weekend who's the chair of Senate Banking.
Also remember, we are the second oldest state in the country, which means
Mhm.
we have one of the highest number of people who may not be as technically literate as the rest of us.
Mhm.
And I think, and we have,
I don't know if AARP wants to weigh in.
That is
I
not
think
a bad idea.
it's balanced with they're really vulnerable if they're carrying like $200 of cash around. I used to talk to my grandmother all the time. Like, someone harasses her or tells her they're from, the apartment building and they need her money or something, and they know she's the one who carries like cash in a little pouch. It's like,
but that's,
so it's something
yeah.
to
There
consider.
are some
scenarios
people who
on-
do that too, and I think, there's privacy issues.
Yeah.
I mean, cash has a purpose, right? It
Yeah.
is legal tender, right?
Yeah.
So-
it is.
So we need to keep it legal.
Right. So people want to err on the side of fewer exemptions that we don't
I do.
understand.
Agreed.
Senator Cummings, I hear this push and pull for you between the cashier in a rural area and the older person who's stuck in the middle of nowhere who wants to use cash.
I got the same emails. I know
Yeah,
where the complaint was from,
yeah,
and I'd like to hear
yeah.
from those people.
Can we see if AARP is available today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, this conversation is kind of random, but,
it's a bill where everybody has opinions.
I received information from a constituent, and I think I shared it, who had it from the point of view of a shop
Mhm.
owner. He preferred cash and.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's that perspective too.
Yes.
Because the fees are pretty high.
Yes.
Yes.
And when you're a
Exactly.
small
Yeah.
retailer, every amount counts.
Right, so we wanna give flexibility, but err on the side of the consumer. Exactly.
Right, but also not
Mhm.
Our current trajectory is to,
Right.
discontinue and
Yeah.
discourage cash.
And I do wanna say, we invited a couple of Vermonters who just emailed in saying they had strong feelings. I don't, like, they must not have said they could testify or something, but I was copied on emails where we have invited regular citizens to weigh in.
Okay.
So Rick, that takes care of the things that you found in other states that are relevant.
And there were a few others I thought that, I mean, Connecticut had one about renting, if you rent goods, like Aaron's Rent a Home, one of those kind of
Oh,
places.
yeah.
You know, they, no cash would be, but that's also kind of a secured thing, in some
Yes.
ways. So, I didn't include that one, but that could be something that can be discussed, if you
Yeah.
want to discuss those kind of places.
We don't really like rent. I don't.
I understand why people like.
Well, we've tried to do a lot of
I have a
consumer
different
protection
level.
around disclosure of how much you end up actually paying.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, well, we
Well, that's-
disclose that, but it is, I have X amount of money.
Yeah.
And I know I can pay $20 a week for this washing machine. But what I know is that if that washing machine breaks down, Aaron's will either fix it or replace it. I only have $20 a week. I don't have $100 for the repairman. And you have to live
Right.
in that there is a finite amount of money that comes in every week. And this is how I manage it. And I don't care if I'm paying more because I can afford to pay it this way.
And I have the service net.
And I have the service.
I didn't mean to get us off on a tangent. If rent to own wants to come in and say something about this bill, they can, but right now they don't have a specific
Oh, we
exemption.
should probably hear from the banks as to why they're excluded
So banks,
Yeah, or not excluded.
or not
I
excluded.
don't, I
Right.
think somebody should justify that.
yeah, so
Very nice.
Chris Delia and
United
AARP
States.
are who are coming out of this conversation.
Sorry?
I would like to hear from you.
It seems to be something that many states have done, so there must.
Tell them even if they don't or testify,
Yeah.
they could just let us
Yeah,
know.
we
They may just have a good lobbying.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you know, retail, what does a bank sell at retail? I'm guessing
Yeah.
banks are concerned that they would alone, which. Well, yeah, I, there's some, they must have been concerned that if someone construes this to be, not retail, could be a loan, could be what else would they do? What else would they
Right.
sell?
Money order.
Money, yeah.
Money or.
Money order, that's a
So
good.
they-
So just the
they-
post office.
They need to include post offices, exactly.
So I've asked for AARP and Chris Delia to weigh in, even if it's informally, even if they find me or tell Rick or something in the next 2 days.
2 days,
Answers to these
one
questions.
day,
One day.
36 hours.
I'm rounding up here, so sometime very soon. So speaking of which, the definition of retail,
Yes.
did we decide that we did need that?
Because I don't think so, because we have all these exceptions. Some of these did define retail, but I structured it in a way that. You could even get rid of the word retail, but I don't think it hurts to have it in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it
Did we,
should be.
did we say we had a definition of retail that it's in our green books?
Oh, there must.
I'm sure it's somewhere, but I would want to define it, and if you wanna have it specifically mean something in the statute, then we should define it.
Okay, can you look on the side before 10:30 for like a definition of retail?
10:30 today,
I mean, just if you like casually, like you did in
Yeah.
North Carolina's
yeah,
exemption.
It should be in the zoning.
yeah,
I'm sure it's in the
I
zoning.
like North Carolina's.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhere in here if it exists.
Okay.
I wish I was one of those people who could say it's entitled, whatever, but somewhere.
That's Rick's.
yeah. Title 9 or 10, probably.
That's- yeah,
probably
that-
9,
right.
Probably 9, yeah. Yeah, give me a few minutes.
Aaron knows it by heart.
I will do
Trying to
that.
pull it up right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
Well, Erin, you're next, so, you don't have to have that answer for us, but it's a good piece of
If we
trivia.
want,
for
are we
your-
gonna consider incorporating the North Carolina? What?
Yeah, the committee wants to.
Does the committee wanna use North Carolina's language for now around?
For the prepaid part.
Is that what is in that?
It's different than what Dylan sent us in that it's $1 minimum on the card versus $5, and it has the confidentiality language built in.
And
Well,
Yeah.
that you can.
I think Visa probably
Redeem it.
has it. I'm just wondering, has North Carolina found a vendor that will work at that dollar level?
Yeah.
Do people wanna do $5?
I would keep it.
So do North Carolina's language, but with $5 instead of.
As long as 5 singles could be used. I mean,
Well, and you said that
You
was.
said that, yeah.
You can't use change.
We're not gonna put that in statute.
I'm gonna put 5 single statutes.
With inflation, I think that the $5.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rick.
I'll hang out and I'll do a little bit of
Thank you
research.
for hanging.
I will have to pop out at some point.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
So.
Eric. Hi, we haven't
Hello.
seen you. Oh.
Yeah, I have to apologize. I missed Magali's original email and so thank you, Senator Clarkson, for running into me in the.
I know, it's a good thing you're here.
We're looking for you. So, my sincere apologies for finally showing up. But here we are. For the record, Erin Segrist, president of Vermont Retail and Grocers Association. So just a little bit of a background about Vermont Retail and Grocers, VRGFE. We represent over 750 members across the state, which includes several types of business models. We have general retail, so it can be the clothing store, the bookstore, the florist down the street, grocery stores, anything from the country store right up to the big large three grocery stores here in Vermont.
Can I ask, has the question of what is retail ever come up in your work? Because is that a pretty, I don't know.
So
No.
the definition of retail is basically if you are a person or an established business that sells products,
Mhm.
that would be a retailer.
Like tangible products?
Um,
Like if you're a masseuse, you're not retail.
so that's where it gets a little gray,
Okay.
right? Because you're selling a service.
Yeah.
You're selling a
So
service.
we need to define.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So a masseuse, are they required
Mhm.
to accept cash?
Or a doctor or any professionals.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So we also represent convenience stores, distributors, food producers, and then business service providers as well.
Can I just pause it? So
Yeah.
just to say, in your world, you generally represent people who sell tangibly. Good.
Yes.
Can you think of anyone you represent that?
So we have business service providers, so we do have attorneys for like,
Okay,
but they're more participating to have access to the retailers.
Okay.
They're selling tangible.
okay.
Yes.
So they don't call themselves retailers, they're adjacent or sort of
Professionals.
auxiliary
Professional
or
Professional service.
professional services for retailers.
Yeah.
Okay,
But they're members, so they also have an opinion. as well.
sure.
So-
But when we do the definition, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
we know what you're calling a retailer.
Right, so basically, if you are selling it for our purposes, if you're selling a tangible product, then
Mhm.
you can join our association. So if you're a veterinarian selling dog food or cat food
Right,
or
right.
medicine,
Okay.
you're a retailer, right?
Do you represent online retailers?
We do not.
Okay,
Although my guess is many of your retailers have online presence.
Yes.
right.
Yes, but not solely online retailers.
Bricks and mortar
You
retail.
don't do Amazon.
We do not.
Yeah.
Yes. We have not banned them. They have not come to us to say, can we join?
Mhm.
That would be an issue. We can choose who we represent, right?
Yeah,
If they're a retailer, we are welcome to, we have to represent them if they'd like to join.
okay. Senator Brock.
Do your members include things such as convenience stores and, on a wide scale basis of small retailers in rural towns?
Yeah, so we represent everything, right? The country store, the country store in the middle of the Northeast Kingdom that takes 20 minutes to get from anywhere, right? All the way up to the convenience store that are on Main Street or, the large grocery stores, the independently owned convenience stores, pretty much everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Senator Clarkson.
No,
Oh.
question, just a tag for you for later.
Okay, I don't know, this was for me.
No,
Never
okay.
mind.
Otherwise, of course.
Okay, yeah.
So just to share with you, the House did consider the House version of this bill, I should say House Commerce Committee considered this bill back in January. And after that hearing, I was asked to poll my members.
Okay.
And so our poll was sent out to 756 contacts with a 24% response rate.
Great.
So that's about 181 responses.
Yeah.
And I've never seen this before. 100% of respondents report that they still accept cash.
Okay.
I have not heard from one retailer that says I refuse cash.
Mhm.
That's great.
So were
So-
there comments of interest that you received?
So it was within my newsletter and my Friday update. So
Okay.
it was a yes or no question.
That's fair. You
Yeah.
only have so much time.
Yeah. But I have put it on my to-do list for this summer to have further discussions about it.
Okay.
And how many members do you have again?
Over 750 members.
I would imagine if someone didn't accept cash, they'd want to weigh in.
Yes.
And, so it's really interesting that
Yeah.
it seems,
You might accept cash up until 9 p.m. But then if you're a convenience store that's open till midnight, you might not accept cash after that, or you might. That's,
can we get right to this concern that, what we haven't seen in any other state is something that speaks to like a cashier who might feel vulnerable because they have a lot of cash
Yeah.
on their person.
Yeah.
Did your where
So
is that?
So in
With your-
conversations that I've had,
Yeah.
I think initial reaction would be that now you're placing it on the retailer to pick and choose or hold the line on when they can accept cash and when not to accept.
Yeah.
Right, so if a customer comes in, they got out of work late and it's 9:15 and they stop accepting cash at 9 p.m.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now you're providing an inconvenience and a very frustrating situation for the customer, which now
Right.
reflects poorly on the retailer.
Right.
So I think there's some concern about cutoff times.
Mhm.
I guess to get to my question is, has there been data brought forth showing that this is an issue in Vermont? I understand that there have been some anecdotal,
there have been
Evident.
emails
Yeah.
in Eastern Washington County about one, I would say probably not a retailer, but more like a locksmith.
Mhm.
But I have not heard any problems in Vermont with not accepting cash, except we have their representative here. I'm not sure they're selling retail.
Right. If we define retail clearly. So what you're saying is you don't think your members have a problem with this bill?
we don't see a reason for this bill.
Oh, okay, that's fair. I mean, what's interesting is it's one of those bills that was sitting on the wall, and while it was sitting on the wall, people emailed us and said, please pass this, it's
Yeah.
kind of a human interest bill
Right,
of
right.
sorts.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say, as you said, your members are accepting cash and they represent a broad swath of who is in retail.
Yes, our members are accepting cash. So we're envisioning this as more of a solution in search of a problem. Right? So when a few people reach out and say, please pass this, versus no data showing that this is an actual issue, that
Mhm.
prohibiting people from accessing the goods or services that they are showing up to retail or any business. There's no reason to put a mandate in place that is unnecessary.
I would say what Lisa presented to me is helpful because I know of transaction situations that involve a transfer of goods that someone could be required to use a card that's quite costly, or sort of if they lose the card, it costs them more than $1. So I know I have had personal experiences that I could name. I know you wouldn't consider a transportation card or a printing card a retail transaction, but this might be a question of how much you could charge for, cards that mimic cash. And do you have retailers who
Isn't that what our debit cards do? Don't they mimic cash?
But some people are not
A machine
bankable.
that you could put cash in and get
Mhm.
essentially like a gift card out of. You have a
Right.
card with $50 on it.
Right.
And then you walk across the aisle and you
Mhm.
pay the retailer.
Right.
But I think what Aaron's saying is that retailers in Vermont are taking cash,
Mhm.
so they don't need to go to the expense of the
Mhm.
machine.
Right.
You may have issues in more urban areas in Vermont, where there is some uptick in retail theft and,
Mhm.
there, we're not New York City.
Right.
We're not even close.
Well, probably for Anna.
Yeah. No, I mean, my husband just had $2,000 worth of laundry money stolen from him. If people are moving to non-cash transactions because no one wants to. I think laundry, they don't want to hold that much cash. I mean,
Well,
there's a lot of.
if you've got a machine there and you're putting cash in
Yeah.
it, it's pretty likely anybody that shot knows you people are putting money in there.
Right.
They broke
Yeah.
the machine.
I mean,
No,
retail,
they stole it from his person out of the car. Yeah.
but they'll break into the machines.
Yeah. No one just wants to have $2,000
No,
cash.
I mean,
from town.
for years,
Yeah.
retailers here, the police will escort you to the bank box
Mm-hmm.
to put the money in the box. You have a lot of young retail workers, frequently,
Yeah.
used to be high school students, but
Right.
that it's 10 o'clock at night.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying
They know who's
is,
walking across with a white bag.
if retailers make the decision to start transitioning away from cash because there's increased public safety concerns, we should still protect the consumer in that transition away from cash. That's, I think, the question on the table is, we're not seeing a big problem right now, but are we going to see more transactions that don't involve cash in the future that people are used to using cash?
That's sort of my question for Aaron, which is, you say your crowd doesn't understand why we need this bill at all. Does your crowd not experience a lot of retail theft? I mean, what percent?
Well, that would be,
I guess-
cash, you mean, right?
Yeah, I guess how
Goods.
vulnerable do your retailers feel, to go to the problem? Are your retailers feeling there's a problem that we could help solve with this?
Not with this bill. So good question, Senator. I do have a couple of pieces. You were asking about the mandate of retailers accepting up to $1,000. And I think that gets to your question, right? Given the increase in violent crimes and various altercations, this does raise the concern that if you are saying you have to accept up to $1,000 cash, it could place some retailers in closer to the target zone, right? So I think somebody came up with or suggested the mattress store.
Mhm.
So you walk in, someone walks in and pays $1,200 cash for a mattress store. Well, offenders know what the limits are for coming into a store and stealing product, right? Now they have the understanding that, well, there's $1,000 requirement that you accept cash. So all of these stores that have big ticket items now it now opens them up, we believe, to saying, okay, well, they have to require cash, so I'm gonna go after them
Mhm.
because there's potential that they have the cash. Whereas like it's not gonna impact the country store, right?
Mhm.
Country store is always going to accept cash. It's the larger it's the retailers that sell the larger ticket items
Mhm.
that now will be put into even more danger
Right,
because they're required to accept
right.
$1,000.
So I think what I'm hearing is you're not neutral on this bill. The retailers and grocers oppose this.
We don't see a need for it.
Okay.
We-
Okay.
We don't see it, and
Do you have relationships in other states where, I mean, we're here, there's a diverse group of states that have passed something like
Right.
this. And they may be seeing trends that are coming to Vermont. So even if it's not this year, is this a safeguard that we should be considering for the future? So, knowing what the experience has been in other states that triggered this bill. I mean, Massachusetts obviously did it decades ago. Maybe at the
We're
outset
also-
of other
we're also-
payment forms.
we're also not Massachusetts, right? But I think it's worth having a conversation down the road. I don't think it's an issue that needs to be fixed right now.
Do all of your members accept credit cards?
Yes.
They do.
I should say, every member I've spoken to accepts credit cards. I did push questions out over the summer about credit card processing. That's a significant discussion that I have with many of my members. To the point that was made earlier, most of our retailers would prefer to accept cash anyway because of the cost of credit card processing. I have
Mhm.
members who, one just texted me this morning and said he paid $46,000 in credit card processing fees last year. I had one member email me a couple of weeks ago, they paid $103,000 in credit card processing fees last year. So, you know, the cost of
Mhm.
managing the credit cards and having that, providing that access to consumers,
Right,
that's very expensive. They would much prefer
right.
accepting the
Yeah.
cash.
I mean, I think one of the things you're telling us is that when people feel frustration with cashless transactions, it's potentially like at a bar or in a service transaction or in some other context than a retail transaction where there's a risk to having a cashless, a cash-based system, I should say.
Yes.
And it's unlikely they've experienced this frustration with a convenience store at night, in the middle of nowhere. They're experiencing this frustration in another setting than a retail establishment.
Yes.
The consumer or?
Yeah, the consumer.
Yeah, the consumer, yes.
Was there any sector that had any different answers? Not sector, but like convenience stores versus, LLB or whatever.
No,
Okay.
not that I,
The single person in a store has the same experience as someone in a large department store.
from what I can understand, yes. The safety issue does come up. I think it goes back to the requirement of accepting up to $1,000, right? The safety requirement is an issue for all of our retailers, whether
Yeah.
you're a convenience store or
Right.
the grocery store or the department store. The more cash you have on hand, the more likely you are to see some of that disappear, shrink. Senator Cummings was talking about that. And also it places a target on the retailer for offenders to come in and, potentially have some type of altercation or confrontation with an employee. I've had retailers share with me various terrifying situations. One employee was held up at gunpoint twice within 1 week and he ended up quitting, rightfully so, you know? But it's very difficult to find employees, so requiring retailers to accept cash at such a high rate would only magnify, I think, the insecurity that employees face in situations.
Well, now your apology for not coming in earlier is meaningful because we have only been hearing from people who say, I hope you protect my right to use cash, et cetera, et cetera.
And I fully appreciate that, and I can understand where consumers are coming from, but this is not an issue in Vermont. It's retailers would prefer to take cash, but they don't want to be required to take $1,000 in cash, right? The small businesses that I think we all want to support and protect are already accepting cash.
Yeah. Questions, other questions?
No, not right now, but thank
Just to touch base on the reverse ATM machine that Dylan was talking about, thinking about what that would look like for a retailer to manage. It's basically like it's a vending machine,
Yeah.
an ATM machine,
Yeah.
but they're actually smaller. And so my concern with, and retailers have the right to
Yeah. Right.
to provide that service. Many of them have not chosen to provide that service because it is easier to pick up. And run off it.
So would you say your furniture stores are accepting cash?
I did not reach out to the furniture. I can reach out to them. I didn't
Okay.
hear from them,
Yeah.
but I can reach out and
Okay.
not say. I would.
I'm not saying that we want to solve that problem particularly, but I think it is a question of would we be targeting the big ticket stores, the ones that sell
I don't-
$500, $600 item?
I've been to my local retail store in the last couple of years. There's no signs up that says
Mhm.
no cash,
Right.
but I think once you say you have to take $1,000, then it's out there
Sure.
and it's
Mhm.
public.
Yeah,
That-
yeah,
You know, if you go in and somebody's got $1,000
Right.
cash, that
yeah.
the odds increase.
Yeah, it's just as much out of curiosity as anything,
Yeah.
because that is a competitive advantage you would have over an Amazon or a Wayfair, is that you can walk into your local furniture store and buy a chair for $300 cash and know the person and
But at
see
the same
it.
time, it's akin to
Yeah.
putting a rob me sign on the front door.
If you mean if we pass this bill,
Yes.
they're.
And to have to take $1,000 of cash, it means the amount of cash that has to be on hand has got to probably be larger in a number of areas for them to fully comply with the law. And it also alerts
Mhm.
people to the fact that there's cash there that are not necessarily alerted to it at this point. So the question is, do we actually do more harm than good?
Right, that is the question.
Second,
Right,
question I
yeah.
have, and this is just kind of an aside, is, do people who take cash now, can they refuse to take cash in certain denominations? For example, I certainly see, outfits that won't take $50 bills and $100 bills, but with this bill, they presumably would have to. I also see the aggravating circumstances in which someone comes in with $200 in pennies. And they are gonna be required to take that under this bill. And I believe that your
Yeah.
members don't have to do that today. They have discretion to do it.
Right, I mean, I would just say, so we don't dismiss this conversation forever. I imagine in those other states that have passed this bill, they did see like a huge uptick in crime of a certain type. I think we know from our marijuana and cannabis industry that it is a risk to have that much cash. That is, already a risk they're facing.
Yeah.
So we do wish you came in earlier.
Yes, my apologies. Yeah, I missed this email and that is completely on me.
Do you have cannabis retailers in your network or no?
We do not.
Okay.
My understanding was there was an association, but they have.
I know, yeah.
There are
yeah.
opportunities.
It's not working.
I know.
Yeah, it has always been.
I just need 3 more people.
They're not organized.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, this is extremely helpful. I mean, I'm sure you've also helped pave the way for your other witnesses to say, something similar and at least seek exemptions for, the kinds of transactions they're engaged in.
Yes.
But you're essentially representing a majority of retail transactions for tangible goods, and you all would prefer not to do this.
Yeah, I don't think, we're not saying never. I think there needs to be some data showing if it is a real issue.
Yeah.
It's,
No, we love data
Not an
and we
issue.
love that you have pulled your members. So
Yes.
yes, we didn't even know that part. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
We are comfortable with that.
more data about the amount of retail theft too. I mean, I think we all
Yes,
know,
That's true.
we don't have
Yes.
enough detail about
yeah.
Yeah.
the amount
So,
of it, and so that would be interesting to pull your members
yes,
too.
so we actually created, 2 years ago now, a form that
Mhm.
all retailers can go on and fill out to provide us that information. I think the struggle is everyone is just overwhelmed and short
Yeah.
staffed and it takes time to sit down and fill it out. That being said, I am partnering with a couple of RDCs this summer as well as some retailers to hopefully figure out how we can start collecting that information.
Cause that data would be very helpful.
Yes.
I think that's a great point. I think it's a separate conversation that our committee would like to have. We hear from retailers that they feel we're not meeting their needs or hearing their concerns about retail theft. So we are happy to have that conversation.
We will certainly be back to talk with you about that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Not this year, you think? You want to wait?
Well, so there actually was a bill passed out of the House Judiciary Committee that we are supportive of. It would
Okay.
aggregate, offenses, so if you've stolen
Well,
multiple
well,
times within
Okay,
14 days is H 34.
thank you.
We're supportive of the passage of that bill.
Okay.
I'm happy to weigh in on that anytime. It's not in your jurisdiction just yet,
So
but
about the revolving door with retail theft, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
But yeah, if it's.
Yeah.
It's the amount, and
Mhm.
The amount
the
and
cumulative
Right.
amount is more
Right, and
than.
they're professionals, right? The
Yes.
Chittenden County retailers know about 30 to 40 people by face and by name.
Mhm.
They're the ones we're going after, not the people that steal after them or
Mhm. Mhm.
everyone that
Your old child that's been through the
Exactly.
grocery line with the dumb padded on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
we'll look out
Yeah.
for that bill and see
Yeah.
if we wanted to have a flyby with that.
Yes, happy to, and I will keep an eye out for
We
anything
appreciate
from
that.
the
This is
valley.
Olivia.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they
don't
don't
want to say
No,
that.
no, Magali's out today. but
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Great.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Karen.
I just stepped out.
Okay.
I did find a few definitions of retail, if you care to hear
But,
those.
yeah, yeah.
It varies in the VSA.
Mm-hmm.
Retail, because we've defined it, for example, in Title 32 Sales and Use Tax, as means any sale, lease, or rental for any purpose other than for resale, sublease, or separate. So the general definition of retail is directly to the consumer. It's not to resell, and that might be.
But is it a tangible good or?
Yeah, well, because we say goods and services.
Service, so we say service.
We do say services.
Okay.
We don't,
But I think you would define, in this case, you would define retail, your rate you would have. And it's using the section at retail means any sale or lease for any purpose other than for resale or sublease. And I think that gets the point across. We're not talking about wholesale, we're not talking about, business to business, we're just talking about direct to consumer. That'd be my recommendation.
But that does, I'm asking for to be fair to our next two witnesses, they would be captured under that definition of retail as key area, a trash service, trash collection service would be captured under.
the exception we talked about was the locksmith or the,
Someone who's not at a
Tow
physical
truck.
location.
who doesn't have, well, they have, tow trucks got a physical location, it's the garage. But if I call my local garage,
Yeah. You know, the exemption was that they're not in their physical location,
okay.
but I mean, still, it's a very broad definition.
Yeah,
so-
I mean,
People have a reason to be here and say,
I'm not coming out to the interstate at 2 a.m. unless I have a credit card, I know I can charge,
Mhm,
because this could very well be a hoax,
mhm.
or could be dangerous.
Yeah. So that exemption was pulled from other states, but still, I'm glad we have that definition because it demonstrates that it's broader than I think people were envisioning about the transaction for a tangible good in the state.
I would just think that retail means direct to consumer, and I wouldn't get
With
caught
a
in the
service.
detail. Good or service. Retail can be any type of direct to consumer purchase or lease.
Mhm.
I'm step away from, I will,
Okay, so like a vehicle too,
sure, yeah. But if you're the consumer, if you're not gonna resell it.
yeah. Fine,
that's-
okay, yeah, no,
Under
absolutely, like,
under
let's go start your vehicle.
under $1,000.
Right, but at least payment under $1,000 every month would
Yes.
qualify, okay,
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And Kim Crosby, yeah, good morning.
For the record, my name is Kim Crosby. I'm the Director of Environmental Compliance for Casella. Casella was founded in Vermont in 1975. We've since expanded our waste and recycling operations throughout the Northeast. We have around 8,000 employees now, 670 are Vermonters. We operate approximately 22 waste and recycling facilities throughout the state of Vermont. Obviously, operate the state's only landfill. 2 recycling facilities and several hauling and transfer stations and drop-offs. Some of our facilities we own and operate, and some of them we operate on behalf of a municipality. So just to give you some differences between, explain the difference between a transfer station and a drop-off.
Mm-hmm.
A transfer station is where the garbage trucks go out and collect waste at the curb. They arrive at the transfer station, if they pull into a building that's covered, has a tip floor, they offload that waste, and then that waste is offloaded into a larger transfer trailer, and then it goes to the landfill. A drop off is more for smaller commercial and residential customers, right? They're cans placed on the ground for waste recycling, food waste, and they're often in remote locations. They're meant to be a convenience to residents who can't or decide not to have a subscription service. So I became aware of this 175 a few weeks ago when it was introduced by Senator Kirchliff. I did follow up with an email to him explaining why we made a decision to move away from cash at our drop-offs. And just to be clear, we do take cash at a lot of our facilities, we always have. And when we made the decision to move away from cash, it kind of started during the pandemic. Our drop-offs, we had troubles getting change. We had troubles making deposits, and people didn't want to handle or touch cash. And some of those issues kind of continued after the pandemic ended.
Even though we found out that's not how we transmit the disease.
Even though, yeah, well, not so much the handling continued, it's more the getting change and making deposits. So, after COVID, we realized that we were also putting our employees at risk of being targeted for robbery. These locations are really remote. Some of them have bad or no cell service. Even if they could call somebody, there's no one around to help. They're often one person at a time on duty. And they're handling large amounts of cash, and it was putting them at risk.
We have limited time, so why don't we let Kim finish?
Yep. And then we also kind of discovered that when we moved away from taking cash, that we had an increase in revenue. So not only does it put the employee at risk, be targeted for robbery, but it also can be tempting for them to cash is hard to track. So it can put them in a position to maybe take some cash and then they can lose their job. I have
shrinkage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do have Ryan Deneen from Casella here also. He manages all the drop-offs. He's hires all of the attendants, and we have some attendants that have been with us for a long time and they're great. We have others that aren't, and I think Ryan, you said that 95% of the people we interview for these positions can't pass a drug test. So
But you don't want to have to be more selective about who you choose and potentially.
if they're handling
Yeah.
monetary transactions,
Right.
you certainly want to know.
Yeah.
When we have that, the
Yes.
company policy anyway.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, you know, Casella takes safety very seriously. I've been there 16 years and I wouldn't be if they didn't. It's a number, our safety of our employees is a priority over maybe the inconvenience of a few of our customers that were unhappy about us not taking cash.
Yeah.
With that said, we did get a couple of complaints about it, and we'll take cash, but it has to be the exact change because we don't have the ability to make the change.
Right.
So I guess we would ask that you allow us to continue that flexibility to put our safety of our employees first and not mandate us to accept cash at these locations where so the change, our employees like this change. They don't want the responsibility of handling all this cash. And
Right.
they were driving around with these cash
Yeah.
bags and it's
Yeah.
just, it's too risky and it's a huge liability for us.
Right.
And, you know, I think that's our decision
Yeah.
to be able to make on what's
Yeah.
best for our employees.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kim. What I want to do, because Molly has also come all this way, or, you know, I don't know how often you're in the building. I don't know if it's every day, we should have you in, but I want to let you speak because I then foresee a 5 or so minute conversation about whether or not we move forward with the bill. So well said, and I think it was valuable to know you would be captured in this bill. And
Yes.
So if one of my constituents, and I think there's 2, maybe 3, did the emails, absolutely is not gonna touch a credit card. If they come down to you and they say, I don't do credit cards, but I'll pay cash. As long as they have the exact change, or they're taking the risk if they don't, because they don't know what you're gonna charge them, right, until they.
But if they're routine customers, they kind of know what the price is,
Okay.
and they know what they have.
So there's
We
a
would take
risk,
checks, money orders. We
Yeah.
prefer not to take cash, but we will if
Right.
it's all somebody
Okay.
has. We're not,
Right,
you
right.
know,
so you will take it, but the
exactly.
policy is you don't want it's risk
Don't
to
show up
them, it's
expecting it.
risk,
Yeah,
financial
we-
risk to you.
We're encouraging the use of these other mechanisms specifically because of the increase in drugs and crime and communities just aren't as safe as they used to be. And that's the reality that we're living in today. I don't like it either, but that's unfortunately where we're at.
We should. Okay.
Ryan.
Oh, you did, Ryan has something to add, okay.
I would just add one quick thing.
And can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm Ryan Deneen. I am the manager for these depot drop-off locations and some transfer stations. I would just say some of our clientele, because we got some complaints, this has evolved, right? We went cashless. We accepted that there were some people who are not really wanting to be there. We have moved to the exact change thing. We also do deal with a lot of mental health at these locations. Interesting job, I'll say, coming into it. There's just a lot of factors here, right? And safety, my staff, I would just attest, are very happy and feel safer not carrying volumes of cash around.
And we have that at a couple of our facilities broken into several times. We don't wanna be advertising that we're
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And on Saturday
on YouTube now.
evening,
Yeah, right, fair,
Right?
yeah.
So,
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. So Molly, let's get you in the witness chair and then there's not plenty of time this time for us to comment and hope folks stick around.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about S-175. I'm Molly Mahar, president of the Vermont Ski Areas Association, and just briefly, since I haven't been in the committee yet. We're a nonprofit trade association representing 21 alpine and 27 cross-country ski areas across the state. And our members range from small community areas all the way up to the largest resorts. So getting right to the heart of the matter, while many ski areas in Vermont do accept cash, we do have 5 areas that do not accept cash presently. And several others are contemplating a transition to cashless operations. In recent years, there has been a trend toward more transactions completed online prior to guests coming to ski areas. That includes lift tickets and season pass purchases, lesson and rental equipment reservations, and certainly accommodations reservations, which is more common. Many ski areas are using dynamic pricing models, which incentivize advance purchase for lift tickets. So that allows guests to skip the ticket window altogether. If they have that piece of media, they can just reload their card and go. During the pandemic, health department operating guidelines were really a catalyst for our resorts to adopt more technology to enable contactless transactions. For example, we had some food outlets at ski areas that started offering, order and pay ahead and then just pick up, which we haven't really seen before. And that's a great example of, the use of this technology, which has continued and increased, affording guests more convenient and efficient options for making reservations and making payments. There are several reasons why it's beneficial for a ski area to be a cashless operation. Many of those you've already touched on, but just briefly, ski areas, like all businesses, pretty much in the recent years have had trouble, staffing, although I will say it's been getting much better. But most ski areas, I would say the vast majority, have multiple points of sale on their campus, for lack of a better word. And that can often be spread over several miles, and accepting cash at every point of sale means that each one needs a bank that employees need to pick up and drop off. Banks and cash receipts must be reconciled by the employees and the accounting department. So it's very time and labor intensive, for ski areas, especially with all of these points of sale, to accept cash. And cash must be counted and accounted for daily, stored securely, transported to the bank. And I will say that, with some banks closing branches in some communities, it can be more difficult for ski areas to access a proximate bank branch. Safety and fraud are other concerns, which we've talked about. Having cash on hand increases concerns for employee safety, sometimes in remote conditions. And I've been in that situation, working in a ticket window and having to carry, like put my cash bag in my coat while I'm walking over to do the cash drop. Something that you think about. And it also increases opportunity for instances of fraud to occur. So, I think we would agree with Aaron's stance on the bill, but we prefer that CRs not be required to accept cash as payment, for the reasons I just outlined. And also, we do have the 5 areas that aren't accepting cash now. In preparing for this testimony, I did look at Colorado, which is the largest ski state in the country, to see what they were doing, and spoke with some of our sister areas out there. Sure. And there are a couple things in the statute that they have, that 3 things really that were important to us, and it looks like the first 2 have been picked up in drafts. I believe it's 1.1, which is, just applies to in-person transactions, not online, obviously. And then does not apply to a retail transaction in which the establishment requires that a security deposit be placed on a credit card or a credit card number be provided to cover unforeseen damages or expenses. That statute also does have a piece in it regarding the reverse ATM issue, but I think you're already talking about that. So the biggest one I think that we haven't talked about that appears in Colorado that would be really helpful for the skiers if this were to move forward would be a retail establishment with more than 1 point of sale at a single address complies with this section if it accepts currency at no fewer than 1 point of sale. So the ski areas in Colorado are living with that, which they have, a guest service desk that would take cash.
Right.
And many of these larger areas that are cashless have gift cards, so they have the ability they would have the ability to take cash and issue a gift card. Now, so I think that's really our biggest change that we would ask if this were to move forward. And that's what I had for you this morning. And thank you for your time and attention. And sorry I whiffled through that fast, but
you're of our witnesses today, you're probably the one that most cognizantly deals with people who do not have US currency as well. What is your current policy around or like Canadian currency?
Some areas do take it at par. I would say 1 or possibly 2 or do take Canadian currency. I think the ones that accept cash, I'd have to go back and ask, but I believe that they do take it. Or be able to, do some type of a transfer on. But I would say the vast majority, so the majority of our skier visits come from out of state.
Right.
And so people are traveling, and so they typically are using cards when they travel and just easiest to facilitate, their transactions that way.
Thank you. And thanks for reaching out to Colorado because I hadn't quite thought of that connection, but Colorado looks like it has a very big, exemption list bill, but you pointed out some ones that clearly give the skiers what they need. We have a few minutes. I'd like to take the pulse of, you're welcome to stay there or move out of the witness chair, the hot seat. I'd like to take the pulse of the committee about moving forward with this bill. I will say it's looking daunting to try and do that by tomorrow. So do people feel compelled by what we heard today to?
I think once I've heard, and I'm sure they contact me to tell my constituents that yes, if they have exact change, they might have to sacrifice 50 cents somewhere.
Right.
But if they go with change, they can get the drop-off services. Other than that, I think we're solving a problem that doesn't exist at this point. And if it ever exists, the technology will be so different 2 years from now. We won't be solving it anyway.
Right. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. See your face.
Well, it's hard. I see it more than just the convenience is that many times when you, when you don't use cash, it's expensive. It's more expensive than the charge. So,
Right.
so if we don't do it, I understand, but I think we need to just be
Right.
aware of
Right.
those charges because it adds up.
Yes.
And it,
Yeah.
you know, it's a consumer protection
Mm-hmm.
issue
Well,
is how I see it.
An owner protection. I mean, every retailer can
And the
make their
retailer,
own choice
right.
about what they want to do
Well,
on,
but at some point, you can't make your own choice if that's what the
Mhm.
customer expects.
So
But if you have the market, businesses that don't do what the customer wants, don't succeed.
I
And
understand,
that's the management control.
but are the,
Secondly, you have the risk when you mandate cash of actually increasing cost to business that is going to be passed along to the consumer. If people have to maintain loads of cash that they don't, if they have people who are less safe, their insurance is associated with it. If you're creating additional risk in the course of that, all of that has increased costs, and you don't necessarily see it, but you do see it in inflationary rises in prices.
yes,
And
I would,
again, as I think Senator Cummings has said, based on, I've got zero contact for anybody asking for this. And so the question again is there may be a small number, but at the same time, we may be trying to solve a problem that really doesn't exist to a magnitude necessary for this kind of change.
So I will, when I said daunting, I'll be more specific. When we started this, I assumed the definition of retail was much narrower than we just heard that it was. So I, as chair, just don't feel it's responsible for us to try and resolve that by tomorrow. In any way that we can take this to the floor. So there was lots of compelling information and testimony, but within that, retail is almost any transaction in the state, and these exemptions, are things that we're considering just 48 hours before we have to book the bill out, or less, 36 hours. So I think we're gonna have to let this one go.
And that doesn't mean for forever, and I think it's all evolving.
Yeah.
We also still haven't heard from a couple places we have
Sure.
identified
Yeah,
that we want
So we'll-
to hear from.
I don't want Olivia to go on a wild goose chase today. We'll try to hear from them informally, but we're not gonna
But my point is,
keep this on the agenda.
but my point is that I think there's more work we should be doing before we pass. this
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah,
So I think you're absolutely right. Sadly, I think we've run out of sort of runway space on.
yeah. So
And-
more time on our final couple of issues tomorrow. Veggie and the Proposition 3, I think are our last two left.
And basically,
Sorry. I think we budgeted.
I'm sorry.
No. So we have 3 bills tomorrow. We've taken one off of our agenda. Really appreciate everyone's testimony.
No, very helpful and illuminating and,
Yes.
and.
And we look forward to following up on other issues you're experiencing around safety, retail theft, workforce, housing, all the other things we care about.
we have all those too.
Yes,
We can
exactly. For those of you we haven't seen yet this year, we care